from That Park Place. THR claims Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck will replace Kathleen Kennedy as co-heads of Lucasfilm. This by Marvin Montanaro, June 4, 2025. According to The Hollywood Reporter, studio insiders say Lucasfilm is likely to promote from within, with Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck expecting to succeed Kathleen Kennedy in a shared leadership role. The move would mark the end of Kennedy's tenuous decade-plus tenure atop the Star Wars franchise, as Disney looks to course correct after years of inconsistent results. Despite ongoing speculation about external candidates like former 20th century executives Emma Watts, the report says the, quote, current thinking inside Lucasfilm is that Filoni and Beck will take co-head roles. The idea, according to insiders cited by THR, is to pass the reins to longtime veterans familiar with the franchise's DNA, rather than bring in an outside voice. And even that has caveats. Guys, what was your initial reactions to this, and what do you think might be going on here?
I would say that if familiarity with the franchise is getting us what we're getting right now, then I would say that they should go with someone who has never heard of Star Wars. That's kind of where I'm at on this whole idea. I don't know. Culture, what do you think?
I think, sadly, the reason that we've been getting such, poop for Star Wars is because you have had people unfamiliar with the franchise as the writers and the makers of this stuff. So really, neither of these options, and this is, obviously not Marvin or anybody who writes for us this issue, but I think we should be looking for somebody who's an absolute lover of the franchise, understands it through everything, thick and thin, whatever you want to say, and put them in position of power, because the people that you're putting in power and thinking that you've had has been terrible. Because, as I said, you're getting nothing that anybody wants. You're getting a lot of toilet water at the end of the day.
Toilet water. Oh boy. Yeah, that's the thing, right? So Star Wars has been headed by Kathleen Kennedy this entire time. We all know that, obviously. But more than that, though, Dave Filoni, Carrie Beck, they've been in positions of power this entire time, kind of stewarding the franchise, right? So, the expectation that things will change, which I think a lot of people, when they read that headline, they're all hoping for. I don't think that's really going to play out in the way that they imagine, especially when you look at the report itself from THR. I'm going to go ahead and read it here while enjoying this little nice montage of images of the executives we're talking about. Lucasfilm seems likely to follow the path in replacing Kennedy, despite speculation about outside candidates, including former 20th century head Emma Watts. Insiders say the company seems most likely to promote from within. Current thinking is a scenario where Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni and production head Carrie Beck, both Lucasfilm veterans, take co-head roles, as we just read from Marvin Montanaro. But here's where it gets interesting. Even as an arm of Disney, Lucasfilm remains in many ways a family business, and as a George Lucas protege, Filoni long has been considered a golden boy. But the knock against him is that he might be too steeped in Star Wars lore and risks steering a show into dense mythology that loses a broader audience. Quote, he's not the Andor guy, he's the Ahsoka guy, says one Disney insider. That's a very interesting quote right there. We'll go over that in just a moment. Beck, who joined the company in 2012, knows the ins and outs, but neither she nor Filoni has much film experience, which could be mitigated by Kennedy's continued presence as a producer on certain Star Wars projects, ensuring quality control in the short term. Jonas, what does that sound like to you, by the way?
It sounds like everything that has come out of Lucasfilm right now is Dave Filoni's fault.
That's a fair point.
So if we're to look at what they currently have at Lucasfilm right now, then that would be an indication of what we're going to be getting going forward if Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck are to be made fully in charge of this company. And I just have to say, if you're an investor and you're listening to this and you're trying to understand whether or not Carrie Beck being in that position is a good thing, if you know the profit potential of Star Wars and you see the people in charge of it now as fully actualizing that, I got great news for you. If they literally just turned this into a licensing house and hired people outside of Lucasfilm to be in charge of Star Wars, you would get better results than what you're getting right now.
Yeah.
Dave Filoni is really good at Star Wars animation, and I would say he's even just kind of okay at Star Wars animation. For the most part, he hasn't been too offensive. Some of his best work has been calling back to what George Lucas did. He is not the only person out there who's a Star Wars expert. Yes, he has a relationship with George Lucas, but you know what? Everyone in the entire world has an opinion on Star Wars, and the fact that they've gone with this fella right here as the only person who understands is a travesty. I think that you could get one nerd, and I'm going to say Lauren Connor, who's on our panels. He could be in charge of Star Wars from a lore standpoint, and you'd be fine. You could get somebody who is only in a cursory way involved in Star Wars or aware of Star Wars and still get better results than what you've gotten from Ahsoka, which is boring, Andor, which no one wants to watch and cost more than $500 million to make. Whatever they've got and whatever the secret sauce is over there, you don't want it.
Well, and that's an interesting thing that you bring up there, Jonas, because when you talk about people that know the lore and all of that, it's interesting. They see that as a negative, and I can kind of understand why from a Hollywood insiders trades kind of view, right? But honestly, Star Wars has kind of suffered from people really not having a great grasp or understanding of the franchise, in my view. So putting somebody in a position in which more of that lore, more of that what makes Star Wars preserved. I mean, I don't know if Dave Filoni is ideal for that situation, but like Lauren Connor, for example, he'd be a big improvements from what we actually see right here. Could actually improve the franchise, not actually degrade it over time. At least in my view, culture. Maybe I'm wrong here. Carry back Dave Filoni, the people.
Well, look, the fetish Filoni has never been my favorite. That's a lot of F's. That's some alliteration for you. But I'll just say that I just think he makes garbage. Some people may like his animation. I think it's passable. At least as far as the story. It's not like that guy's actually animating anything. And I feel like the timing of this announcement is a test of waters, a testing of the waters. I think that much like, the destruction of Frontierland, this is going to be very unpopular because if anybody thinks about it, for all of the reasons that Jonas already mentioned, Star Wars hasn't gotten better under his leadership, under his guidance. And I don't think Becca's the right choice either. I think you've got two people that are just going to, march in lockstep with what Kathy wants this to be forever now. And that's the exact polar opposite of what Star Wars needs.
I totally agree with you. To me, to me, Lucasfilm doesn't need to be a studio if this is all they're doing here. They need to be a licensing division. They can have an animation house if that's the only thing they have that's successful. I think they need to stop pulling from the TV shows for their live action films here. Mandalorian and Grogu is it's already done in my opinion. I don't understand what the interest would be at this point. Season 3 of The Mandalorian and Grogu just completely dropped off in the ratings, and I think we all know why. I just this is a tragedy when it comes down to it. Obviously, Bob Iger is going studio by studio after he's purchased them and just strangling the life out of them. He fired Ike Perlmutter from Marvel, which also coincided with a huge decline in Marvel. He fired John Lasseter from Disney Pixar, which also fired him from Disney Animation Studios. He's done this without George Lucas at Lucasfilm, and look how that's gone. I'm trying to think of anything else he has left. Of course, the company acquired the Muppets before any of all this, and they're about to destroy Muppet Vision and replace it with what we're hearing. Well, I don't think that people who are looking for a long-term Muppet location within the parks are going to be happy with how things are going. That's all I can say about that. I just think that this is Bob Iger buys things he doesn't understand and he strangles the life out of them slowly. And Lucasfilm is just this is the end of Lucasfilm to me. If Harry Beck and Dave Filoni are put in charge, we've said that Star Wars is dead, and I think that this is just this is like saying, well, we're not going to take you off of life support. We're not going to pull the plug. We're just going to continue to let this corpse sit there in the infirmatory for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, Star Wars has really fallen off a big league with the current leadership there at Lucasfilm. This just seems like a continuation of that. This is why I think Pro actually was talking about this last night, talking about how this may have come from Kathleen Kennedy's camp altogether, and especially with that last line that she continue as a presence to ensure quality control. Where have we heard that before? I mean, that sounds like a Bob Iger. I'll just take creative. Bob, go ahead and take the reins there. Bob isn't Bob Chapek. It's what is it line? You're not making the same mistakes, you're making entirely new ones, kind of thing. I under such a structure, I just don't see many things changing, and that's the thing. Lucasfilm needs to change, and change in a big way. If people see Kathleen Kennedy at all associated with any Lucasfilm project going forward, they will continue to suffer, because people understand that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't mean the insurance of quality. It means the insurance of the opposite. So that has to change in a big, profound way. I just don't see that happening under this structure. But hey, we'll see. This is a developing story, folks. And again, this is one trade publication that thinks they've got it figured out. We'll see if that is actually the case, probably sooner rather than later.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media account.